thing. Imagine if we had a country like Israel that had, in Asia, that was able to have such intelligence on China and things like that. We could use other allies like Israel and their intelligence agencies, no question about it.
We just got this in, and I had just asked you about Iran's nuclear capabilities. The IDF just posted this. The full thing gets cut off on our screen, but I have the entire tweet in front of me. I'm going to read it for you. The IDF says declassified Iran's nuclear plans. Recent intelligence shows Iran is nearing the point of no return in its race toward a nuclear weapon. The regime is producing thousands of kilograms of enriched uranium alongside decentralized and fortified enrichment compounds in underground fortified sites. This program has accelerated significantly in recent months, bringing the regime significantly closer to obtaining a nuclear weapon. They continue. The Iranian regime has been working for decades to obtain a nuclear weapon. The world has attempted every possible diplomatic path to stop it, but the regime has refused to stop. The state of Israel has been left with no choice. The IDF has the obligation to act in defense of the civilians of Israel and will continue to do so. That's the social media post in full, and they looked like they attached a graphic to this tweet as well, just to give a visual representation of some of the progress that's been made. This leads me to one of the biggest questions that I get all the time from viewers, which is, what's the, and this is going to sound like an obvious question to some people, but I would love the answer in your words. What type of threat does a nuclearized Iran pose?
Well, let me quote Steve Witkoff, if I may, for a second, who's President Trump's, senior, I don't know, aide. I mean, he's got the Iran account, he's got Ukraine, and he's got a host of things. And he said last night, it's an existential threat to Israel, and it's an existential threat to the United States. And it's so I think that summarizes actually pretty well. I mean, one former Iranian president said that Israel is a one bomb country. The one bomb, it's a small country. You put one nuclear bomb, God forbid, and explode it there, and it will pretty much destroy much of the country. I think there's no question that that's pretty much true, but also just them having it gives them a nuclear umbrella to just conduct all sorts of awful things. Look what they've been able to do in recent decades. This regime in Tehran has got to go down as one of the worst regimes ever. First of all, they've killed or maimed hundreds of American soldiers. Uh, they've look what they do to their own people, their women, what they do to their own people. Um, and they have two main enemies, Israel and the United States. And they always call us the big Satan and Israel the little Satan. If they have a bomb, then it's not just what they could do, but other countries in the region are going to get the bomb, and you have a nuclear proliferation. If you thought the Middle East was a tinderbox before, it'd be a lot worse. I think also there's something that's important for Americans to understand. Many U.S. presidents for the last every president for about the last 30 years has said we will not allow a nuclear Iran, Democrat or Republican. And every president vowed to prevent such a thing. Well, when it came down to it, it was only Israel that was willing to do that. If I may, I think Israel also made these warnings, and I think they had to do something, not only because they had to destroy Iran's nuclear facilities, and not only because of October 7th and to settle accounts, but to maintain their own credibility in an awful neighborhood. Americans should also think about that. And I actually would hope, so far the U.S. has acted like a bystander in this. You have Republican senators, some Democrats who've been supportive of Israel, but Secretary Rubio made it clear this is an Israeli thing, not an American. We can't act like a bystander. Our own credibility is at stake. And I think unless we're seen as standing by Israel, that I think that it will be a terrible signal of the lack of credibility to the Chinese and the Russians and our other allies that will be seen as not standing by a close ally on an issue that actually, as Steve Witkoff said, it poses an existential threat to the United States. So I'd like to see a change in U.S. policy on this. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but I think it's important for Americans to understand what's at stake for the United States. This is not an Israel-only issue. This affects our security and it affects our credibility and position in the world.
In your opinion, what changes are worth talking about?
I mean, what should we do differently? Well, look, I would have liked to see, and we still could do it. I'd like to see us, frankly, collaborate with the Israelis and hit some of the tougher targets that maybe that our bombers are more able to destroy than the Israeli bombers are. If we didn't want to participate in operation, so far it's clear the president doesn't want to, it seems like. But even if we don't, there are ways we could help the Israelis with intelligence, with air refueling. Certainly, we got to help them as much as we can with protecting their airspace. So the Iranians, as you mentioned earlier, they're going to seek revenge. So if they fire a lot of ballistic missiles, we need to be helpful to them. Just like, I mean, it'd be unusual for President Trump, who was so pro-Israel, not to at least give the support that President Biden gave Israel. So I think there are ways we could help them, but I think one of the other ways we could help Israel, but also very much our own interest, is to warn the Iranians and make the Tehran regime, among the officials that are still alive, they need to understand that if they escalate this, if they retaliate hard against Israel, if they try to hit our troops, if they try to hit other parts of the Middle East, our Arab allies, if they try to make this a regional war, then we're going to respond very strongly at Tehran, and it could undermine the very regime itself. And I think because it's in our interest, as the Israelis and our other allies in the region, that this has not become a regional war. And we have to make that abundantly clear to the Iranians. We're not going to tolerate, we're not going to allow that. And I think that might be one of the most important things we could do right now.
Michael Makovsky is the head of GINSA. We appreciate you staying up late with us. Take care.
No, thank you. Have a good night. Good talking to you.
Yep.
Bye.
So we have a live vantage point of the White House just past midnight in the nation's capital. It is time for us to take a quick commercial break. The Foundation for the Defense of Democracy is joining us when we return.
Have been heard. There were reports in US media that Israel is preparing to strike Iran. Israel has declared a state of emergency with a ban on gatherings.
Welcome back in Alive Now. I'm Austin Westfall. You've been looking at a live image of Jerusalem. We continue to monitor the breaking news out of the Middle East. The Foundation for the Defense of Democracy's CEO, Mark Dubowitz, joining us over the phone. Mark, do you have me?
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Mark, your initial reaction to some of the news that we're seeing out of the region?
Well, I think it was an extraordinary operation. I mean, this is, I think, even the sort of battle damage assessments, as they call it, already demonstrates some really early successes, and the information obviously is early and still coming in, but it looks like the Israelis have gone after a wide range of targets. They've gone after nuclear, air defenses, military personnel, military infrastructure, nuclear scientists. It looks like they've gone after top commanders. The top IRGC commander is dead. The Army Chief of Staff is dead. The IRGC aerospace commander has been killed. These are the top echelon of the security and military forces of the regime. They're also going after nuclear sites. They're working nuclear infrastructure, the enrichment facilities. Multiple more locations are planned. It looks like this is an Israeli plan to really finish this, a comprehensive strike. They've killed a number of nuclear scientists who are involved in building the warhead to complete the Iranian nuclear weapon. And, again, I think they've been able to identify with precision intelligence and really have killed a number of these top commanders in their houses while they were asleep. So it's really a remarkable campaign of precision intelligence by Mossad and Israel's Unit 8200, which is their equivalent of the NSA, as well as the Israeli Air Force. And so quite a remarkable operation, and I think it's really just in phase one already.
So I've heard that you know a thing or two about the progress that's been made about Iran's nuclear program. This is something I was talking about with the last guest. And I'm not sure if you've seen, but the IDF just posted on their social accounts a recap, if you will, kind of explaining the Iranian nuclear program, how it's progressed in recent months and years. We have the tweet up on our screen right now. Part of it says, the IDF, again quoting, they say recent intelligence shows that Iran is nearing the point of no return in its race toward a nuclear weapon. Mark, what kind of progress have they made? How close are they to the bomb?
Well, they're very close. They have enough enriched material for 17 bombs worth. Could break out in a matter of days. They have they've been working on the warhead, the weapon, and it seems like there's new intelligence coming in from the Israelis that the supreme leader has knowledge of that, has given an order to his weapon scientists. There have been reports that they've begun work on it. We're not sure exactly what work, but certainly it may be initial computer modeling, it may be metallurgy work. It may actually be much more expansive than U.S. intelligence knew about it. And there was always somewhat of a disagreement between U.S. intel and Israeli intel about the scope and the progress that they were making on the warhead. But both intelligence communities agreed that Iran had begun preliminary work. So you've got the warhead, you've got the highly enriched uranium, you've got an inventory of 3,000 ballistic missiles, all capable of delivering nuclear warheads. You've got the Iranians having admitted to starting a new facility to enrich uranium to weapons grade at a place that the Israelis call Salahin, which is near the Natanz facility, which is going to go even deeper underground than the current buried under a mountain enrichment facilities. This one was going to go over 100 meters underground, hardened, fortified with concrete, really something that would be probably immune from Israeli and even American strikes. So if that was completed, Israel was concerned that Iran's nuclear program would reach a zone of immunity, really be fully immunized. And so clear indications, not just from the Israelis or from the Americans, but the International Atomic Energy Agency, UN weapons inspectors, finding evidence of Iranian nuclear duplicity, and the International Atomic Energy Board of Governors just referred Iran for the first time in 20 years to the UN Security Council for its violations of its obligations under the Non-Proliferation Treaty. So overwhelming evidence that Iran has a nuclear weapons program, as well as an intercontinental ballistic missile program, which is designed only for a nuclear warhead and is only designed to threaten and to strike the American homeland. So not only a threat to Israel and our Gulf allies, but a clear and present threat to the United States.
We've been keeping up with Andrea Stricker with the FDD. She just posted that the IDF has released slides about Iran's efforts in recent months to move closer to construction of nuclear weapons. She posts a summary on her X account saying, Supreme Leader Khamenei was aware and directed secrecy about the program. She says that senior officials and knowledgeable scientists were involved. Iran was advancing readiness to make components of nuclear weapons, including neutron sources, uranium metal using its enriched uranium stock, and explosives. We are talking about some complex stuff here, Mark, but you say that these are blockbuster revelations. I got to ask you, if you could put this in layman's terms for us, how do the Iranians get a hold of what's needed to make a nuclear weapon? Who are their allies? Do they need any to make this happen?
Yeah, I mean, they've certainly had help over the years from the Chinese, from the Russians, potentially from the North Koreans. Many of their original centrifuge designs came from A.Q. Khan, the Pakistani master of the Pakistani nuclear weapons program, who proliferated these designs and the technical knowledge to Iran and North Korea, Libya, and elsewhere. So they've had technical assistance in the past, and certainly ongoing advice and technology that they've procured from around the world. But they've also domesticated a lot of this knowledge and technical ability, and have built up an expansive nuclear weapons program, particularly under President Biden, unfortunately. When President Biden came into office and decided to abandon the maximum pressure campaign of Trump and try to negotiate or renegotiate another nuclear deal, the Iranians just began massively expanding their nuclear program and began enriching from low levels of 3.67% to 20% to 60% to 84%, which is effectively weapons-grade uranium, installed thousands of advanced centrifuges, broke ground on this Salahin facility that I talked about earlier that would create a zone of immunity for them, and did all of this with, Iranian nuclear scientists and with the technical knowledge that they had developed and with the equipment that they had procured over really decades of building out this nuclear program.
We're looking at a live vantage point of Jerusalem on what is now Friday morning, 7:17 in the morning, Israel Standard Time. What are you watching for next? We have been looking out for any sort of response from the Iranians. I was speaking with Dr. Alon Burstein earlier this evening, and he said that he was reading some rumors online that they could strike as soon as 2 hours after Israel strikes. Is that characteristic of Iran to strike back so quickly, or might we expect something in due time, in a longer amount of time?
Well, they know that they're going to be facing multiple rounds of Israeli strikes, and they've seen already the early devastation to both their nuclear program and to their leadership assets. And so they may respond quickly instead of continuing to take quite a beating. They may also decide to wait, and I think it's going to be really important. What I'm watching for is what President Trump says. It's really important how he communicates this. If he communicates to the Supreme Leader of Iran that he had offered a very generous deal, given them 60 days, that clock ran out today, but he can come back to the negotiating table and agree to fully dismantle his program, to stop enrichment. President Trump had offered this. This would have been the peaceful option for Khamenei to take, and President Trump made it clear that if he took that option, he would support massive investments inside Iran and really to sort of make Iran great again. But of course, Khamenei rejected that offer and has been recalcitrant at the negotiating table. President Trump can say, come back to the table. Steve Witkoff, the lead negotiator, will meet your negotiator, Arakchi, in Oman to negotiate a deal. Or the United States may join Israel in in destroying what's left of Iran's nuclear program, and I think could also hold the regime's survival at risk. I think if President Trump sends that message, that may temper the response of the Iranians. If there's any sense of distance between Washington and Jerusalem on this, I think all that does is encourage a severe Iranian retaliation and may encourage the kind of escalation that I think the president is going to want to avoid.
So, Mark, I'm going to read you a post from Fox's Pentagon correspondent. She quotes the Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs says the aggressive actions of the Zionist regime against Iran could not have been carried out without coordination with and approval of the United States. Thus, the U.S. government, as the main supporter of this regime, will be held responsible for the dangerous consequences of Israel's adventurism. Again, that's the Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This was just posted. So Iran saying that the U.S. will be held responsible for what's happened. What avenues, Mark, does Iran have in order to get any sort of payback, if you will, against the United States? What levers do they have at their disposal?
Well, first of all, I think the foreign ministry is right. I mean, I don't usually, agree with the regime in Iran, but I think they're right. I mean, I think there has been there's close coordination between the United States and Israel.
All right.
I don't think Israelis would have gone without,
I am scanning for breaking news as we go through our super chat, so we're not like tuning
I
out or like zoning out or something. We are looking. It's just that we don't really see anything right this second.
US,
so we're currently waiting on the retaliation strikes by Iran. That's what we're really waiting on right now. But moving on to our next super chat while we're waiting on that, this one is going to go to Elvis, who puts in a $100 donation.
President
Thank
Trump,
you very much, Elvis, for that $100.
Weeks and days, I think his rhetoric.
Thank you. And thank you very much, Elvis, for that 100. And he said, thanks for hanging in there tonight, guys.
Hey,
and also, man, by the way, that was supposed to be like an Elvis impersonation I was doing.
I thought you were like saying something. I was like, what's he saying over there?
No, man, I was trying to sit there while you were reading that off and just go in the background. Thank you very much.
How
like Elvis would, kind of like that. Well, they got to be very careful going after the United States. You turned to that cat and you
understand that President Trump
I was like, what?
prepared to use military force the last time.
But beyond that, I do thank you for the massive support.
Listen to him.
Thank you so much for enjoying us hanging in here tonight.
It
was a
in
long
Baghdad
show. I got to give a huge thanks to Matthew for helping to put together the news while we were putting it on the air, so that we could then talk about it and analyze and give.
Most dangerous and experienced battlefield commander, somebody that President Obama and President Bush weren't prepared to target. So, Premier Ali Khamenei is going to be very careful in going after U.S. personnel, U.S. assets, and certainly the U.S. homeland. So he has lots of options to cause havoc and violence, but he also has to be very cognizant of the fact that if he targets America and hurts Americans, that's really when he could risk his regime and see the end of the regime.
More context from Jennifer Griffin. She says that Brett Baer, Fox News anchor Brett Baer, has spoken to President Trump by phone tonight following the airstrikes. Here's what he said. President Trump was aware of the strikes beforehand. There were no surprises, but the U.S. was not involved militarily in the strikes. No surprises here, Mark, as you alluded to. Let me ask you about the Israeli general public, because I was speaking with some of our guests earlier today about how we got here. My curiosity here is, do we have any indication of how the Israeli public at large feels about striking Iran in such a way? Is there any reliable polling to suggest which way the Israeli public falls about de-escalating Iran's nuclear program?
Yeah, the polling I've seen over the years and months is overwhelming Israeli support for getting rid of Iran's nuclear weapons program. And I think the vast majority of Israelis understand that weapon represents an existential threat to the survival of the state of Israel. The regime in Iran has made no secrets of the fact that they want to destroy Israel. They built a ring of fire around Israel. They supported, financed, greenlit the October 7th attack by Hamas against Israel, which was the worst attack against Jews, single-day attack since the Holocaust. So since October 7th, there's no Israeli that's under the illusion that if Iran were to get weapons of mass destruction, that the regime would use those either directly to destroy Israel or would use that to blackmail Israeli Prime Minister, the American President, and use its proxy army and its missiles to rain death on the Israeli public. So no Israelis under any illusion. I think the majority of Israelis support what happened tonight, and certainly politically across the political spectrum. From left to right, Israeli leaders are united in this, from Yair Lapid.
انت الاسرع مع وي 5G وكمان ليك لحد 25 جيجا هديه.
They're also going after people, and they're doing so in very targeted, specific ways, in a way that will, I think, surprise many people. But given what we've seen the last couple of years,
right now
the Israelis very effectively targeting people like Nasrallah and Ismail Haniyeh, the Hamas leader, actually in the Iranian capital, Tehran. They have developed a formidable capability of destroying their enemies one by one, and they're going to carry on.
Of course, we'll
deploying it to
morning,
try and weaken Iran as much as they can.
Interestingly, in the past hour or so, we heard from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. They issued a statement specifically relating to their head, Hossein Salami, who, as you said, has been killed in those strikes, saying that they will exact revenge. So, obviously, as you were mentioning, Israeli strikes taking out people of very high level within the Iranian regime. Dominic Waghorn, International Affairs Editor. Dominic, thank you very much for that.
We talked about so often in the early months.
And as Dominic was giving us the overview, our correspondent David Blevins has more reaction now from the U.S. The Secretary of State Marco Rubio confirmed that Washington had no involvement in these strikes.
That got intense at times.
The United States is seeking to distance itself right now from these strikes, although it is very clear that the Trump administration had advance notice. The President's National Security Team was monitoring the strikes in real time from the Situation Room at the White House.
50 سنة والسي اي دي كان دايما موجود معاك. 50 سنة بنكبر وبنتطور وبنفرق عن أي حد. 50 سنة بنشتغل عشانك في صمت.
Along with his other portfolio, and this is what he had to say. Tonight, Israel took unilateral action against Iran. We are not involved in strikes against Iran, and our top priority is protecting American forces. Israel advised us that they believe this action was necessary. Trump and the administration have taken all necessary steps to protect our forces and remain in close contact with our regional partners. Let me be clear, Iran should not target U.S. interests or personnel. That is a very clear warning he is issuing to Iran, but it is also a warning that is being backed up by action, because the U.S. government has now restricted the movement of some of its staff in Israel, and yesterday it placed non-essential embassy staff in Baghdad on standby for evacuation from Iraq. Now, when the President was asked about that at an event last night, he said it's simply because it's a very dangerous region, and we'll see what happens. But I think it's now very clear to all of us why the U.S. government is in the process of issuing that kind of advice to its staff across the Middle East.
The latest from the United States there. Well, Israel is expecting retaliation from Iran, and Israelis have been put on high alert. Our Middle East correspondent Alistair Bunkle has the latest from Jerusalem.
Well, the country was awoken around 3 a.m. this morning when those Israeli strikes took place in Iran, and millions of people have been sheltering in safe rooms or bunkers ever since, expecting a possible Iranian retaliation.
من 50 سنة والسي اي دي كان دايما موجود معاك. 50 سنة بنشتغل عشانك في صمت. انت الأسرع مع وي 5G وكمان ليك لحد 25 جيجا هدية.
Military targets, and they are targeting key Iranian military personnel. Israel is still awaiting a response from Iran. I think if that is going to come, then it will come quite swiftly, because quite simply Iran probably does not have time to waste. This is not a